Hello again, everyone. I have another video for enthusiasts, beginners, collectors. This is a very special review today because it's a camera that is very popular, and it just so happens that I found this camera on eBay for a very, very good deal via the Salvation Army, and it is the nicest example of the Canon auto exposure one that I've ever owned in all my years of collecting. I started collecting the year before COVID, 2019, and it's been a fantastic 6 years of just collecting, learning. So this video, as always, is for the beginner who found this camera in their, attic, or maybe their grandfather or grandmother passed it down to them, or maybe they are a student who needs a camera for class, and the AE-1 is a very, very good choice for a first camera because it is shutter priority. And you can find them for very, very low prices if you look around, find the right listing, which this was. Salvation Army listed this for $58. So I had the winning bid on it, won it for $58. So I'm just going to go over operation, what all these buttons and knobs mean, so you can go out and start shooting. Okay, so this camera uses FD mount lenses. Now, this is a very interesting setup here because this type of lens, Canon called the breech mount lens, where this silver ring locks in place instead of you having to turn the entire lens itself. The only thing that turns is this gray breech lock here. So, to demonstrate how to remove it first, you're not touching any buttons on the camera. You're just turning counterclockwise and moving. Preferably, you want to have the camera pointed down and the lens pointed down when you remove it to reduce dust or any other type of debris getting into the rear element or the mirror in the throat of the camera. To mount it, simply reassociate the lens and turn the breech lock clockwise. It's not going to lock in place. It's not going to click in place. You just have to friction fit it on there. So now I'm going to turn the camera around this way, because now we're going to go over the top of the camera, going from your left, the viewer's left, to the viewer's right. This is your rewind knob and lever. You flick this lever out and you turn it clockwise to rewind the film. This is your battery check function. The Canon AE-1 is a shutter priority camera. So on the right side of the prism, when you look into the viewfinder here, you're going to see a list of apertures that the camera is going to automatically select if the lens is in this A mode here. There's also a lock that moves it from the manual selections to A. Now, if you point it at a bright source of light and turn it on, the camera obviously is not going to like the amount of light that's coming through the lens. You're going to find, or have to find, something that's a little less bright than, let's say, the lamp that I have over to my right side here. So this is the battery check. The match needle for the aperture selector will move if a battery has been inserted, which we will do in a second, as you can see here, which will signify that your camera is operating. On the top here is a hot shoe cover or flash shoe cover. Back in the day, these were known as flash shoes, not hot shoes. To me, I say flash shoe because modern cameras, you can put an external microphone, you can put a flash, you can put another viewfinder. Some lenses, you have to have the mirror locked up in order for you to use the lens, so you have to use an external viewfinder. Sometimes that is the term that people use, hot shoe. So this is for a flash, which I will show you how to mount. This is the flash shoe cover, which actually came with the camera, so I know whoever owned this prior to me took excellent care of the camera, and I am very grateful for that. Actually, when it came in the mail, it had Kodak 800 film in there. I took it out, but someone was obviously using it before the battery died. Over to your right side now. I'm going from left to right. This is your on-off switch, if you will. So you can see here, if I move the advance lever out of the way, you're going to have a red L and an A. If I move the lever back toward you, the viewer, you're going to see the black mark on the red L, which stands for lock. I can't use the camera if it's in this position. It also saves the battery. A for active means, yes, I'm able to fire the shutter by advancing the lever and taking the picture. If I move it up, so away from you, you'll see it has there's sort of this red LED light here. Well, we'll go over that in a second. That's a self-timer function. This is your advance lever. If I have it in the advance mode, A for advance, I can cock the shutter, and when I have the battery inserted, I can take the picture. This is your shutter speed selector. As this is a shutter priority camera, this is the knob that you're going to be using the most if you're using it in shutter priority mode. Now, if you're a student, you're probably going to use this mode the most over the f-stops on the lens, because you just want to set it and forget it, right? So that's the top of the camera. You also see a green ASA selector. This is the code on the film which will tell the computer in the camera what speed do I have to program myself to shoot. So how do we change that? You're going to lift up on the entire ring, the outer gray ring, and if you can see, you're going to move it to the film speed that you're shooting. 400 is really the go-to if you're going to Walgreens, or 400 is really the go-to if you're a student. That's the speed of film that I used in high school when I took my photography classes. But know that you can change this ASA selection whenever you want to. Just have to make sure that you're compensating for the speed that you've selected. Many people, when they use expired film, shoot a different ASA to get different effects. Overexpose it, underexpose it. Usually they say go a couple of exposures over, I believe, if your film's expired. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, but that's one of the rules that has stayed with me for a while. Now, on the face of the camera, on your left side, you're going to see a door here and a little latch. That's the battery door. This is a fully electronic camera, so it will not operate without a battery. This is the type of battery that you will need. It is a Duracell or any manufacturer, but that's the code, 28A. 28A is the battery that you need to operate. So now you see this little indentation. You're going to very carefully with your finger, I almost got it there, lift up. Now you want to be extremely careful because these battery doors are known to break if you're not careful, and they can cost you sometimes more than the camera, for all you know, to replace. I've seen these battery doors go in the vicinity between $25 to $30. This was 58 bucks, so almost half the camera on just a flimsy battery door. So be very careful. Now, a little trick here. The positive terminal in the indicator is red and the negative is blue. Duracell has the red indicator at the top for the positive terminal. So that's why I recommend the Duracell 28As for this. You cannot confuse the red positive with the red positive terminal on the indicator in the camera. So you're just going to slide the battery in like not slow, or slow as well. Make sure it goes in correctly. Excuse my muddled English there. I usually like to do the spin test to make sure that the battery's seated nice and properly. And then very carefully press in and close. It's in nicely, and we are almost ready to shoot. Now, let's go over the features on the right side of the camera. This is your stop-down function. If I have the lens, let's say, move to f16, the higher the number on the lens, the lower your opening. So if you're shooting on a bright and sunny day, you want to use a higher f-stop for your lens, like f11 or f16. If you're shooting a very cloudy day or in a dark space without a flash, you might want to use a smaller f-stop number, which will give you a larger opening. So f1.8 on this lens is the widest that the lens will open up when you press the shutter button. Now, this is the lens stop-down preview. It'll give you a preview of what your picture is going to look like based off of the aperture selected. Now, of course, if you put it on A mode, the camera will do that for you as well. This is your backlight button for backlit subjects. This is your exposure preview. So the match needle in the camera also fluctuates. It'll give you a preview of the selected aperture that the camera is selecting based off of the computer readout and the shutter speed selected. This right here is the port for the flash connection, or the flash wire, whatever you want to call it. By this point, in 1986, when this camera was produced or manufactured, I'll get to how you determine that a little bit in the future of this video. But many of the flashes did have one of those, sockets for the electrical connections. Some of, mostly electronic flash at the time, like this one right here, which is a Canon Speedlight, did not have any type of wire that plugs into this port here. That port was usually for flash bulb pictures, like I have on this Konica Auto S2. You can see here, this is the flash bulb. It's powered by a battery, but here's the wire to hook up to the flash port right there. So just wanted to show you what you use that port for. Now that we've seen everything on the front, let's go over to the back. This is your viewfinder. You look through this with your eye to frame your shot. What you see in the viewfinder is exactly what you're going to get on your film. It's a full frame 35mm camera, so you can't beat it. You can't beat it. Now, to open the back of the camera to load the film, you're going to pull up on the rewind knob on your left. Open it up all the way to expose the inside of the camera. Now, you don't want to do this when you have film loaded in the camera. If you do this when you have film loaded in the camera, you've just exposed the entire roll, or however many frames you have shot already, and ruined the entire roll from that point on. If you've taken all of your pictures, 24 or 36 pictures, in that roll of film and didn't rewind it and open it up, you just ruined the entire frame, set of frames, the entire roll of film. Now, I said we'll get back to how to date this camera. So here you'll see it looks like well, from this angle you'll see it better. It looks like a U to me. It's like the Greek alphabet U, T, 238. So from A to Z was 1976 to 1985. And when they ran out of Z, which was the year, the first letter of this number here was the date of manufacture. A was, I think, 1976, all the way down to Z was 1985 or something like that. Something to that effect. And they started using two numbers that was post 1985, so starting 1986. So that's how I calculated this camera was manufactured sometime after 1986 or in 1986. This is your film plane where the shutter is. Don't put your fingers here at all. That's the no-no spot for this camera or any film camera of this type, this SLR type. This is a very fragile cloth shutter. If you try to jam something in there because it's not working, or you maybe the battery's inserted wrong and you're not getting an actuation, don't put your fingers in there at all. Take it to a professional camera store or a repairman who can accurately diagnose your issue. You don't want any problems with the shutter. This is the advance spool. This is where you pull the leader out of the film into this one of these sprockets, advance, and that's what keeps your film nice and taut up against, you know, the shutter. This is the film pressure plate. This keeps the film very tight up against the front of the camera. It removes, it's supposed to help remediate air pockets or air bubbles. A couple of cameras at an earlier time, I believe Leica or Contax, had technology where the pressure plate was designed so that no air could get in between the actual film and the shutter once it was open, to prevent dust and hair and all that stuff. You just got to be careful. What I like to do is when I load the film is to rewind the film until it's very, very taut. Not too tight that it'll rip, but very tight so that it's very flush up against the back of the camera. You do not want air bubbles or air pockets getting in, causing wavy lines on your developed film. The last thing I want to discuss is the self-timer here. So I have already actuated the camera. Now you got to be careful because the Canon AE-1 does not have a faster pulsating LED light when you're doing the self-timer. So it's a 8 or 10 second self-timer. So just got to be careful of that. And now I'm just going to go through the shutter speeds for you here. You do it this way. So this is the way that's convenient for you. This is 1/1000th of a second. This is 1/500th. And for our collectors in this audience, you're going to note that this does not have the terrible Canon shutter squeal or squeak that has plagued so many of these cameras since their productions. That was 1/15th. This is 1/8 of a second. This is 1/4. 1/2. 1 full second. 2 full seconds. and B, which stands for bulb. As long as my finger is depressed on the shutter button, the lens will stay stopped down. The shutter will remain open until I release my finger from the shutter button. The mirror comes back down, the shutter closes up, and the lens returns back to its resting position. Then to lock the camera or turn the camera off, you just move the lever down toward you. This is your film advance window. It will tell you how many exposures you have taken. All the way up until 24 or 36, you'll feel a very tight resistance here. Don't shoot any further. That's the end of the roll. Click the button down here and then open the rewind knob. Don't pull up on it. Just pull out the lever here and then turn clockwise until you feel a release. You can wind it all the way back into the film canister while it's still in the camera, or you can leave the leader out if you do your own film processing or are trying to learn how to do your own film processing. I just laugh now because I purchased a film developing kit, an at-home kit, because it was during coronavirus and it was a very tough time, so I just had to figure out how to do something new. So developing was something that I learned pretty quickly in school. At high school, we had a dark room and everything like that. So when COVID hit, I kind of decided to do everything myself. Well, it turns out the first roll of film that I developed was an already shot roll of Polaroid film that someone else had put in a lot that I purchased all the way back then. So that was kind of it for my own personal, development period of film. I just take it to my local camera store that's, I don't know, 2 miles away from my house. Very blessed to have one near me, but that's it. That's the Canon Auto Exposure 1. Again, this camera was manufactured between 1976 and sometime into 1986, 87. Brilliant camera. Brilliant camera. If you have it, use it, treat it like it's a relic, because it is. Don't abuse it. This is something that you don't want to abuse. If you want to abuse a Canon, do abuse something like this, the Rebel TI, which is much, much newer, if you can call it newer. Right before they were just putting digital sensors into these backs. Abuse something like this. This is plastic, throw around. This, especially in the condition that it is, you want to leave it nice and clean. So that's it. That's the Canon AE-1 program. Excuse me, the Canon AE-1. Canon AE-1 program is coming soon. So that's next on the chopping block, the Canon AE-1 program. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. And like I said, feel free to leave a comment, concerns, any corrections down in the comments. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.